Dessert trends come and go, but a sweet tooth is forever. From elaborate chiffon cakes to gigantic frosted cupcakes, dessert trends have certainly changed throughout the 20th century and beyond. At the peak of their popularity, some of these desserts you'd find on practically every restaurant menu, and others could be found in the trendiest cookbooks. We've rounded up almost 60 years of sugary classics, some of which endured the test of time and others that were merely a flash in the baking pan. Which dessert was the most popular the year you were born? Find out here, and then whip one up for a true taste of nostalgia. 1948 to 1952, Chiffon Cake. Although the moist and airy chiffon cake was invented in 1923, according to Food 52, this cake didn't truly become a sweets icon until after the recipe was sold to General Mills in 1947. In 1948, Better Homes and Gardens published an article about their first really new cake in 100 years, with an accompanying Betty Crocker recipe for orange chiffon cake. The fluffy treat took off quickly and became one of the premier baking trends of the late 40s and early 50s. 1953 to 1957, Bananas Foster. The iconic Bananas Foster dessert was invented in 1951 at Brennan's Restaurant in New Orleans. At the time, New Orleans was a major port of entry for banana imports into the United States, and it was not uncommon for restaurants to receive giant shipments of bananas, according to New Orleans Online. The flaming recipe was first published in Holiday magazine and became a dessert fixture of Southern Creole cuisine. 1958 to 1962, Baked Alaska. Some of the most popular desserts of the mid-20th century were whimsical gimmicks. Baked Alaska was considered a surprise cake with stiff peaks of torched whipped meringue on the outside and contrasting cold cream cake on the inside. According to The Secret Lives of Baked Goods, the dessert was then widely popularized when Alaska officially became the 49th state of America in the 1950s. 1963 to 1967, Sparkling Jell-O mold. We can't talk about 1960s desserts without mentioning the king of all mid-20th century ingredients, Jell-O. According to Serious Eats, the Mad Men era was brimming with all sorts of jiggly Jell-O recipes. The sparkling Jell-O mold made with champagne and fresh fruit was a dinner party favorite that made many 1960s shindigs feel fancier. Gelatin molds were an economical part of post-war domestic life and were featured in practically every cookbook on the market. 1968 to 1972, Chocolate Fondue. Switzerland's national dish may have been around for centuries as a melted cheese dip, but the creation of the chocolate version of fondue is actually pretty recent. Chocolate fondue was invented in New York City in the mid-1960s, according to the Spruce Eats. Fondue sets began popping up in department stores everywhere, and chic couples would throw fondue parties to dip skewers of fruit into bubbling pots of chocolate with friends. 1973 to 1977, Carrot Cake. In the more diet-conscious 1970s, carrot cake may have been especially popular because it was made with vegetables, right? It's also slathered in cream cheese frosting, so not quite as healthy as the name suggests. Nevertheless, carrot cake took the 1970s by storm, and packaged versions were seen in the frozen aisle of almost every major grocery store. In 2005, the Food Network listed carrot cake as one of the top 5 food trends of the 1970s. 1978 to 1982, Hummingbird Cake. The Hummingbird Cake, popular in the South, is thought to have been first invented in Jamaica in the 1960s, according to Jamie Oliver. The recipe was brought over to America in the 1970s and caught on like sugar-glazed wildfire after a recipe was published in Southern Living magazine in 1978. From there, it has popped up in numerous blue ribbon-winning county fair contests around America and continues to be a Southern staple. 1983 to 1987, Jell-O Pudding Pops. The trendiest dessert of the 1980s by far was something you could buy from the freezer section of pretty much any grocery store. Jell-O Pudding Pops. These refreshing chocolatey snacks were a staple in most households, even more popular than fudgesicles. According to culinary lore, even though the widespread popularity of pudding pops continued well into the 1990s, they were eventually discontinued before being licensed out to popsicle. 1988 to 1992, Tiramisu. Whoever thought ladyfinger sponge biscuits soaked in espresso layered with mascarpone and topped with cocoa powder would become one of the biggest dessert trends of the 80s and 90s? According to Eater, although tiramisu, which literally means pick-me-up, has its origins in Italy, it became a major staple at Italian-American red sauce restaurants in the late 1980s. 1993 to 1997, Molten Chocolate Lava Cake. Molten chocolate lava cake was a dessert trend that could be found on almost every chic urban restaurant menu throughout the 1990s. This ooey gooey treat was made in 1987 by accident, according to Thrillist, after its inventor undercooked a batch of chocolate cupcakes and their insides were melted. The molten lava cake really took off in popularity when it was added to the menu at the New York restaurant JoJo in 1991, and chocoholics couldn't get enough. 1998 to 2002, Cupcakes. In the late 1990s, with the rise in popularity of Sex and the City, novelty cupcakes began to boom in popularity, and long lines formed outside the once quaint Magnolia Bakery featured on the HBO hit. From the late 90s to the mid-2000s, people couldn't get enough of the cupcake craze, and pink-themed bakeries entirely devoted to the miniature treats sprang up. 2003 to 2007, Frappuccinos. At this point, we should probably admit that the ever-popular Starbucks Frappuccino is really more like a coffee-flavored milkshake than a caffeinated beverage. According to Boston Magazine, even though the Frappuccino was born in the summer of 1995 and grew in popularity throughout the 90s and 2000s, it was still considered a coffee beverage. The first non-coffee versions, known as Frappuccino Blended Cream, were introduced in 2002. And the rest is history. Thanks for watching. Click the mashed icon to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Plus, check out all this cool stuff we know you'll love too.